Welcome back to the Young Turks. Ben Mankiewicz, joined by Teresa Strasser. Teresa's website, exploitingmybaby.com. Teresa is 7.5 months pregnant. And Teresa's website, again, exploitingmybaby.com, would suggest that she's interested in exploiting the weak. So joining us now, speaking of exploiting the weak.
Nice segue.
I'm just kidding. I couldn't resist. Scott Wheeler is the executive director of the National Republican Trust, which I see here is listed as the number 3 conservative Republican political action committee in America. Is that the coaches poll, Scott?
Is that the coaches poll?
Yeah.
Actually, we're probably the second largest PAC overall by this time.
You're a former TV producer. Well, I spent a long time as a TV journalist in Charleston and Miami too. Where did you work? Just out of curiosity.
I was nationally syndicated investigative news show called American Investigator, and so worked mostly on national security, international stuff, wars. Terrorism, things like that.
I mainly did fights on school buses, so
That was your beat?
Yeah, pretty much. We may have covered some slightly different stuff. Anyway, Scott, thanks for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
It sounds like yesterday for you guys was a pretty good day because over the weekend the president, and then yesterday on the shows, the Health and Human Services Secretary Kathleen Sebelius calling the public option not essential. President Obama calling it just a small part of healthcare reform, not a big part. I'm paraphrasing his language. She said it was not essential. The Democratic Senator Kent Conrad saying that also yesterday that there aren't votes in the Senate for the public option. So you think that's good news, correct?
Well, I would say it's good news for America. We now realize that we're back in control of our health care, at least for the time being.
But what it means, though, is that it strikes me is that nothing much is going to change. Healthcare costs continue to skyrocket. We still have anywhere from 40+ million Americans uninsured. How is that going to change without a public option?
Well, I think you have to look at it differently. If you think healthcare is expensive now, wait till the government takes over. It's going to get worse. The care will get worse, and the cost will go up because that's the nature of what the government gets involved with.
Well, the healthcare premiums in the last 10 years with no healthcare reform are up 119% in 10 years. If we don't do something about it, why isn't it going to go up another 119% in the next 10 years?
Well, it depends a lot. For example, a 1968 Buick may have cost more in 1968, but look at the technology you get now with the car, which actually, in actual dollars, costs 6, 7, 8 times as much as a 68 Buick did.
Well,
but the technology is so much better, and that's when you go into the hospital and they're able to save people's lives in the most miraculous way. Where just 20 years ago, or even 10 years ago, lives would have been lost. It costs money to improve your system that way, and that's what people have to come to realize. You're getting a lot of you're putting value on human life, and you say we spend a lot of money on health care, but we get a lot of health care. We get the best technology.
Well, we get the best health care when we can afford the best health care. Those who can't afford it do not get the best health care. And by the way, if you owned a 1968 Buick right now in Los Angeles, I think you'd get laid a lot. Just that's my sense.
Oh, obviously.
Yeah, I think it'd probably be illegal to drive it on the freeway out there.
Not out here. Pretty much anything's legal out here. I don't know. I mean, what that strikes me as, Scott, is some very impressive misdirection. And again, even though you're good at it, and I don't doubt. No, hang on. I don't doubt your sincerity. But again, the fear mongering is in there in the sense that what you're saying is, if we have the government involved in healthcare in any way, even though they already have Medicare and Medicaid, the government already proves they can run that system, that what you're saying is all of a sudden you're not going to be able to get good healthcare anymore. And I see no evidence of that whatsoever.
let's go to Medicare and Medicaid. One of the number one reasons we're told that we have to have a government run healthcare system is because Medicare and Medicaid are so bad now and they're so expensive. And so we're saying to the people who have been running those for the past 30 or 40 years, okay, we're going to let you run the whole thing because you've done so well with Medicare and Medicaid. That seems backwards to me. And I say, wait a minute. The people who have been running it have caused all these problems. Why would we let them fix the whole thing? That's crazy. But let me also back up to your other, if you can afford health care. Let me make the point. Under any system, I don't care what it is, under any system, some group of people will get less care than others. Period. You cannot argue it. You can't debate it. And I can show it to you in the government-run program where the vulnerabilities are. Under our current system, the free market system, the people who pay for the system get a little better care than the people who take from the system. Under Obamacare, it's random. If you're 65 and you need two things done to you to keep you alive, you may not get it because you become too costly.
22%.
Run healthcare system. And so what my point is, what fairer way to do it than the people who pay for the system? Shouldn't they get a little better care?
Well, first of all, the question of your definition of a little and my definition of a little are drastically different because they get a significantly better care, and some people get no care at all. And in fact, 40 million people essentially getting no care at all.
That's a load of government propaganda. Because
propaganda coming from you guys. That's awesome.
Or if you cannot afford health care, you can get Medicaid. Period.
Yeah, you can go to the emergency room and you can get your health care there, and we end up paying for that. And we know that the enormous cost of health care is an enormous strain on the economy. And since no one thinks the government should be in charge of all health care, no one's making that argument. No one on either side of the aisle.
Well, Obama is.
No, he's not. No, he's not. No, he's not. No, he's not. The public option.
I'm sorry. You'll have to. You can go to YouTube and you can see Obama's face and you can see his lips moving and you can hear the sound of his voice numerous times over the past 5 years saying, I believe in a single-payer system. Now, you can't argue
we've already given up the single-payer option because we're so afraid of you guys on the right. You already won that battle. Explain to me how a public option, where people can keep their own insurance, how a public option is a government takeover of healthcare. Because you're just being deceitful when you make that argument, Scott.
That's a complete hogwash. A government option because they do not have to compete in the free market. They don't have to make a profit. They can run a sloppy shop, and then employers and companies will be forced by the extra cost the government puts on them to pay for that system.
What if they don't run a sloppy shop? What if they run
the government option? Everybody knows that's the direction it will go.
Why is the government option sloppy? Why, again, can the government run the military and not be sloppy, but the government can't run health care and be sloppy?
Hey, let me tell you a little something about the military. And that's, by the way, that's the example that almost anybody holds up and says, look how great they do in the military. Let me tell you the realities of the military, and I can speak from experience. The military, the U.S. Army, of which I was a member, does one thing very well. We can take and hold a piece of geography. That's all. Because, let me tell you, the other side of this, when you are wounded or you're injured or you're trying to get something done paperwork or administrative-wise, it sucks.
You know what, Scott? Hold on.
It sucks. I'm sorry.
Hang on one sec, because you know what? I already regretted making that point because I also hate that point. So I'm going to concede that one because, first of all, it's a totally separate issue, and the government obviously has to run the military. And I got that, and it's a dumb argument, and the military wastes money like you wouldn't believe. So I think it's a ridiculous argument. But I'm glad they can hold the piece of geography.
It takes a big man, Ben.
So you know what? I regret it right away. I don't even want to talk about it because I think it's a stupid argument.
May I interject a question?
Go ahead, Teresa. Sorry.
In that case, what's your next example of anything that the government does well? Because believe me, I've been searching for a long time.
Oh, I don't know. Educate people, pave the roads, make the house right, fire
police
department. Everything that we know and love. A billion things. Inspect the food, inspect the meat, go to the moon. A billion things.
Freeze frame right there. Educate people. Now, government's been in the education business for quite a while,
Yeah.
and yet what are these politicians, the very ones who want nationalized health care, by the way, constantly harp at how bad our education system is and how we're ranked 450th on a scale of 182 in the world of education systems.
Yeah,
we want them to do more, and that's it's a ludicrous argument.
It's not a ludicrous argument. We run the most elite universities in the world here, public institutions. We do some education things incredibly well. Your argument is that in a broken system, let's try this. What's your solution to fix healthcare? Just leave it alone, let Aetna do whatever it wants?
I think we get government out of it, first of all, and let the private sector solve the problem. When you take people and give them an option, if you did health care accounts, medical care accounts, medical savings accounts, where people are rewarded for bargain shopping, and I'll give you an example. I don't have any health insurance right now. When I go to my doctor, I pay the bill. I write a check for the bill, and I was shocked to realize I get a substantial discount for paying cash because they don't have to pay for all of the paperwork.
That's great. You can afford it, man. What about people who make $31,000 a year with 4 kids? What are they supposed to do?
A little more than that and live in one of the most expensive parts of the world right now. But I'll tell you, the reason I don't have to I have health insurance on my family. The reason I don't have to carry it is because of a line of duty injury. If I get have something serious, I can go to the VA. I don't go to the VA because to get treatment at the VA, the government-run VA, it takes years. I'm not kidding you. I've been off active duty for 3 years now. I am still waiting for my paperwork to come back. And
as President,
if we go to if we go to government,
as President Obama said this weekend. You should get that care. You should get it a lot quicker. And now we have all these technologies, which you were so happy to brag about with the 1968 Buick, that can streamline that process. And what we ought to do and what the government ought to do is get invested in streamlining that process and make it feasible for you and every other veteran to get the health care that you obviously deserve, which you fortunately can seem to be able to pay for yourself in the interim, which is great news. As you know, that's not the case for a lot of veterans.
And I can pay for an allergy shot. I can pay for an antibiotic and a treatment, a doctor's appointment for that. I couldn't pay for anything big. And if I didn't have the VA, knowing that if I got in an accident and got my legs cut off tomorrow, that I could go to the VA, hopefully, and have them at least, cauterize the wounds and stop the bleeding. I would have to carry insurance on myself, and I will eventually again.
All right, Scott, we're almost out of time. Teresa wants to get a question in. I want to make sure I do that.
Sure.
Well, I appreciate what you said about the free market system, but it would be impossible to not see the obvious flaws. There's rescission, people just getting dropped from their insurance because of some sort of pre-existing condition. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, totally right. Yeah.
There's all kinds of horror stories about the free market system. It hasn't been a complete and total success, not to mention how steeply the premiums have increased.
But let me explain something to you, Teresa. You make a very good point, except a lot of these so-called horror stories about being dropped from your insurance are simply not true. Most states do not even allow companies to drop somebody for any reason, except other than if they stop paying the premium.
Well,
also, in every state, and this is significant, there is a state health insurance high-risk fund which insurance companies have to pay for, where the state subsidizes those. The state collects those premiums and provides for people who are not poor but have sizable risks. They have some huge health problem, and then they pay their premium to the state, and the insurance companies provide the coverage for them.
So is it also?
Risk.
I just get the impression then from you, Scott, and unfortunately we're out of time, but I appreciate you coming on. Is that so that 40 million people plus that we have? That's also just a sort of a horror story that has essentially been made up, which is that number's not really true.
A whole lot of it has been. Many of those 40 million are people who choose not to have insurance. And
How many?
40 million. And I got an insurance policy.
How many are made up? How many are people choosing?
I think the actual figures of actual uninsured people who need insurance, who are not poor enough for Medicaid,
Is
who
$63.
can't afford actual insurance, is about 12 million.
Well, I find I like talking to you, Scott, and I certainly, obviously, appreciate the service you've given to the country. But I find the level of deceit on your side nauseating. And the fact of the matter is that a public option is a public option. It is not the government takeover of health care. And you can argue against it because you think the government screws everything up. But just don't.
It's regrettable that you accuse me of deceit, because I tell you, I would never say anything that I
But
did
he doesn't
not firmly believe.
he doesn't buy free market insurance because he doesn't want to buy a $50 aspirin. He knows free market insurance is bogus.
I just mean
It's more bogus than VA. It's government insurance.
Oh yeah, I've heard. Yeah, the VA is.
argue against it on the merits, though, Scott, but don't scare people into thinking that socialism's going to come and Obamacare, which is a made-up term from you guys, that the government is going to take over health care, because that's not what's happening, and I know you're smart enough to know that.
Let me explain something to you. The government always works that way. Go back and look at Social Security, how it started out. Go back and look at Medicare, how it started out. They were always started as one little, we're just going to help a certain small portion of the population along a little bit, and then they grow into these massive things. And now, 30 years after Medicare started, you are, without any choice whatsoever, at age 65, you are automatically enrolled into Medicare, whether you want it or not.
My
That was
mother-
a program that began as just to help poor people in old age, and
All right.
look what it's grown into.
Well-
we don't have to guess at this. We just have to look at history.
Right, we just have to do it smartly. We're capable of doing that. Finally have some smart guys in charge, which is nice.
Never
For a change.
isn't.
Scott Wheeler, we got to go. I will leave you with the thought that without Social Security and Medicare, I have no idea what my mother would do. That's my personal story. Scott Wheeler, Executive Director of the National Republican Trust, your third-ranked conservative Republican Political Action Committee in America. I know you guys got a big game against SC this weekend. You win that, maybe you get up to number one in the polls. Scott, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Good to be with you guys.
All right.
Watch the live show at theyoungturks.com.